said you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Hi, I'm Gail Rubenstein, the founder and CEO of a company called Retail Resilient, social selling for the car industry. And we help auto dealers, auto agencies, and vendors in the auto industry sell more cars, service more cars, and make more money using our social selling strategy. That includes TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and anything else you can think of. So if you're looking to invest thousands and make millions, we're definitely the social selling company for you. Like I said, who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?
If you run a service drive, you know these days first impressions matter. But when your advisors are tied up with inbound phone calls, they tend to neglect their other, more important duties. And did you know 75% of all service calls are frequently asked questions in routine requests? Still, the average dealer misses up to 30% of inbound calls, adding up to a ton of missed service opportunity and increased customer churn. 68% of callers actually go elsewhere if they can't get through, which means you could be losing $60,000 to $70,000 every month in service revenue simply from missing calls. So who will pick up? Introducing Brooke.
Hi there.
Your best service scheduling assistant. Brooke is the first intelligent digital voice assistant to answer, handle, and appoint all of your inbound service calls. Hiring Brooke means absolutely no call goes unanswered, boosting your customer satisfaction and reducing your overhead costs. And talking to Brooke is like talking to a friend, with human-level understanding and a friendly conversational voice. Her conversational intelligence is built on millions of actual service industry conversations, making her the easiest onboard you'll ever have. She can handle any volume of calls and follows your policies every step of the way, 24/7. That means even when the lights are off, Brooke is always on.
And I can do it without missing a beat.
You really do check all the boxes. Book with Brooke today. Visit Brooke.ai or call 866-942-1236. Finally, the perfect match.
See that light above the bathroom door over there? That's a big time saver for our technicians and other recon staff. The light goes on when the bathroom is occupied. Now techs keep working until the light goes out. Then they know for sure the room is empty. And when they're busy there, they're also catching up on the news. Not that news, but news they need for the job. I post these where they can't be missed. Too often, the search for the right product burns valuable time. This inexpensive detailer's cart organizes supplies. Now techs lay their hands on what they need without delay. We got these time savers from Rapid Recon, the reconditioning software company that's always defining better reconditioning solutions for dealerships like yours. When the goal is to get cars through recon in 72 hours or less, every step, every minute, every better decision made helps towards that goal. For more recon efficiency ideas like these, talk to the recon experts at rapidrecon.com.
Nothing like a cheer track to get everybody going.
Good morning, everybody. So just going to go to the slide deck. All right.
Thanks for your patience while we work through our tech things. This is our first remote from somewhere that we're actually sitting down. So we're going to get used to it. Next time is going to be great, but we have great guests today. So Ian's going to take it away with the slide deck. And of course, we just had our sponsor reel, and thanks to them, we're able to do what we do. So we do appreciate it. For those of you that are interested in them, please touch base with them. Of course, tell them where you saw it, because guess what? That helps us. Ian.
So I was a little challenged with finding 3 books. I usually recommend 3. So I thought what I would do is have 2 slides. The first one is Attracting Talent. So I've got Talent Magnet, Talent War, and Building a Magnetic Culture. Kevin Sheridan, Mike Sergal, and Mark Mueller.
And of course, we also have Inner More on Demons from one of our live guests today. We're going to tell you about him in a minute, but used to look in a different camera. But the Inner More on Demons by our man here, Larry Feldman, and we haven't put it up there. But seeing as how it wasn't specifically about staff, we didn't do it. But forgive us, we should have done it.
And then a few more books in addition to obviously Larry's book. Definitely check it out for some entertainment and obviously some knowledge. We have Who, Hiring for Attitude, Recruiting Rock Stars, Recruiting in the Age of Googleization, and High Velocity Hiring. So there's quite a few books there. So go ahead into our disclaimer.
Of course, our disclaimer is the views and opinions of our guests here are just those of them and not of the AutoHub show. If we do, we may, but we won't admit to it. And please check it out in depth if you'd like to know more.
So we're getting into it. Is it time to hire more staff in 2022 from the AutoHub show? So take it away, Jeff.
Well, the question is it time to hire more staff in 2022? It's interesting. There's an interesting definition of this. And the one I've got it here, which is very good, which is the most clear sign that it's time to hire more staff is when you've had to turn down new business simply because you can't handle any more work or business. Everyone is already tired and working overtime. It'd be just too much for you and your staff to take on new business. You should never have to turn down new business. And I'm going to post in the chat a link to an interesting article in Monster, and we'll put that on in a minute. And so this week we're live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, home of the Oilers, who've now gone on to the second round of the NHL playoffs. And we're in person here with one of our favorite guests, our resident entertainer, and Larry Feldman, as he's here from this little tiny place called Philadelphia. And now he's come to the big city of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And Edmonton is the heart of Canada's oil business. And the city only knows one thing relating to staff. There's never enough. There's good times, there's bad times here. It's up and down, but they never have enough staff. Larry, please say a moment and tell everybody about yourself.
Sure. I'm Larry Feldman. I'm a former car dealer. 10 years ago, I started a training and recruiting company called Career Changers USA, which I may have to modify to Career Changers International since I seem to be spending a considerable amount of time north of the border. I'd also like to congratulate Jeff on his recent engagement to Brooke, the AI person you saw earlier, because if you would have seen how they scramble with these cords here, it was entertaining to say the least. And I'm actually thrilled to be into Canada and Edmonton. And do you want me to throw a thought here as to what you addressed?
Sure.
Okay. When should you hire? We're in Edmonton, and I think it's a cardinal sin to not mention Wayne Gretzky. I know Connor McDavid's the new guy, but Gretzky said his focus was always on where the puck was going to be, not where he was, where it was going to be. So I think realistically, dealers have to really assess what's going to happen when you can no longer point at a car and say, that's the price if you don't want it, 12 other people do. And then when you couple that with the fact that a lot of people have gotten into bad habits and uglier, we will be getting cars. I'm going to say, Larry, what's ugly about that? Well, interest rates are so much dramatically higher that now you're going to have way more cars than you had, where you had prior no floor plan. You were selling things even before they came in. You're going to have to keep them on your lot at a higher cost, which means it's really going to be back to intelligent selling, relationship selling. And tell you, as a trainer and recruiter, I'm licking my chops because I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for any good trainer and recruiter out there.
Thank you, Larry. Our next guest is Don Graff. And boy, oh boy, Don's got quite the resume and everything else. He is the president of Don Graff Automotive Advisors in Bonita Springs, Florida. I love it. Every time Don's on, I got to comment on Bonita Springs, because up here in Canada, we have places like Moose Jaw, we have places like Regina and Red Deer, but hey, down there they got Bonita Springs. Don, say hi. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, good morning. How are you guys doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Well, it's 84 degrees already today, sunny, no wind. Fishing's probably pretty good already. Tell you a little bit about myself. I have 30 years in retail, graduate of NADA Dealer Academy. I went to work for JD Powers and Associates. They taught me how to be a facilitator early in my career. I worked for several other training companies, so I bring a different perspective when I do my recruiting and training with the client. And my company now is focused on a graph profit matrix. We divide into 4 quadrants. We work with people, process, visibility, and finance. We believe that the issues are among those four areas. And today we're focused on the people aspect. And I have hired over 100 people, many hundreds of people in my career. I find that you always have to be looking at where their capabilities are going to be 6 months or a year down the road to see how they're going to fit into your organization. So I agree with Larry. You have to be looking at where the puck is going to be and not where it is now.
Perfect, thank you. Well, of course, you're going to agree with Larry after what I heard you guys did down in Naples. Whoo, boy.
Yeah, Don, is it true you're contemplating moving to Canada? Because when we were in Tampa, you kept moaning how much you hate palm trees. And you did ask about Moose Jaw several times.
Oh, there's no question. So moving right along, now that we've finished all the introductions and everything, it's the Is It Time to Hire More Staff show. And, you know, it's very funny. We talk about this, and there's always 2 great big things that we talk about in the automotive industry. It's really important: customer satisfaction and staff satisfaction and staff. And of course, when they get together with the 20 groups and everything else, well, who knows what happens, but I'll leave it out there. So gentlemen, we have some interesting questions for you. So Ian, the first question is,
we have new vehicle inventory shortages, astonishing used car prices due to new availability, warranty and other parts inventory delays, supplier deficiencies, and tech advances all at once. Is it realistic to consider hiring more staff? And I just wanted to use a personal anecdote. I've been in Alberta for a few days, so I was in Calgary, visited a few dealers, and I am going to be visiting some dealers in Edmonton probably today and maybe sometime tomorrow. And the one that comes to mind is I was at 2 Honda stores. One is a bigger Calgary-based dealer, and the other one's a smaller Calgary area dealer. And they both had conversations with Honda, and Honda said the following to them. They said, well, we were hoping to have 180,000 cars available for Canada this year. And then we were hoping to have 140,000 cars available for Canada this year. And the great news is this week, now we're hoping to have 108,000 cars available for Canada this year. And I said to him, I said, okay, so they're stop lying to you about when you're going to have cars. What are you doing to make sure that you have money in cars over the next 18 to 24 months on the used front? And both dealers, one of which is in process of renovating their showroom, and the other one who'd already done that, said to me, well, we're having challenges finding used cars. And I said, well, you need to have staff, but more importantly, you really need to have inventory, because you can't rely on the manufacturer to deliver cars at scale they used to. And you need to have that solution. And it was interesting because we talked about a dealership in the US called Beaver Toyota. Ironically, the gentleman who owns it is actually, his name is Beaver. That's why, not to use the Canadian thing. But the thing that was interesting there was basically you need to buy vehicles at scale to maintain your business. So staff is part of that. So I just wanted to start the show with that. So go ahead, Larry, you want to answer this question first?
Sure. I think the idea is to be prepared and to grow your business. If you don't, I get in my sales training, people come up to me and say, Larry, I heard you average this many cars a month. I want to average this many. And I said, okay, well, how many people do you think you have to talk to sell that? Because if you're going to sell 20 cars, you're not going to talk to 20 people. Nobody's that good. We'd like to believe we are, but nobody's that good. You have to figure out how many people do I need to talk to? Do I need to take demos with, give numbers to? It's the same thing here. If your salesperson is not engaged and not trained properly and doesn't understand the concept of prospecting and building their own business within your business, you're cooked anyway. The places that are successful teach people to invest in their business in terms of their time and their energy and the contacts that they have. So if you bring people in and they're the right people and they're trained properly, they're going to generate business. So I don't think the time, I think when things are really good or really bad, neither one of them is the time to pull in your horns. Neither one. When they're really bad, yeah, Harry Wilner's on the line. He'll laugh when he hears me say this. A guy told us both a long time ago, you can't save your way into a profit. So I think the people that are making more money than they ever made in their life, this is the time now to reinvest in your store, get the right people, and roll from there. And understand when I say this, I'm on both ends of the spectrum. If I was just a recruiter or just a trainer, you could say it's self-serving. But I'm like that old commercial, you can pay me now or pay me later. You can keep the people you have and keep them engaged, but I still think you're going to need more people, because nothing is worse than when you're at a place and it's busy and you leave because nobody waits on you. And that's not going to go away. People are getting more and more impatient. It's the Amazon model run wild. People freak out if it takes 5 extra seconds for the computer to boot up. So my answer is unequivocally yes. You got some terrific recruiters on this this broadcast that are more than willing and able to help you staff your dealership and train your dealership and do everything else.
Yeah, that great points. I mean, part of the reason I brought up that Beaver example is they started out selling 100 used cars, I think 2 years ago. And I think it was a month or two ago, they sold over 400 used cars. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that they hired dedicated staff just to buy vehicles. So
if you'll allow me, I was on All Things Used Cars, and Dave Long from the Hansel Group, I had to work with them, great guy. He said that he saw people at a Starbucks and how customer friendly they were, and he brought them into the dealership to just try to lure people in so they could buy their used cars. He says, Larry, we made an unbelievable amount of money putting people in that position. Again, it's the old thing. If you have a dog and you point, your dog never looks where you're pointing. He looks at your finger. Once you can get people pointing in the right direction, we need cars, we need inventory as best as we can get, and we need to absolutely do everything we can to attract people. And then when we attract them, we better do what we're supposed to do.
100%. If you're looking to get better at used cars, if you're not listening to David Long's show, All Things Used Cars, you definitely need to do that. But also Tommy's email, you definitely should sign up for that. It's a great email. David said on the show the other day, he said, Tommy's been telling us this for 30 years and we haven't been listening. But go ahead, Mr. Graff.
Well, I'd like to echo pretty much where Larry is, and listening to the used car show the other day, everybody is very high on what's going on in the marketplace if they're following the breadcrumbs and listening and putting into practice what they're learning. The dealers that are not paying attention and that are just putting their money in the bank and not putting it to good use are the ones that are going to be hurting third and fourth quarter. That's my opinion.
Well, that's sitting next to Larry going on and on and on. It's so short. I'm sitting here going, but that's okay. It's a funny thing because people are sitting there, and I've had dealers tell me, they'll say, well, I don't need more staff. I don't have more cars to sell. We're selling everyone we get. So what do I need more? And yet Larry hit a nail on the head, and it's something I've always commented about. Starbucks gives you amazing service each and every time. It's so rare when you go to a Starbucks that you don't get great service. You're really pissed because it's not 10 out of 10 service. And yet it is a minimum wage job, and there's the potential for them to make any what we would call good money isn't there. And it's great to see somebody recognize that, and somebody like David Long. It's got to tell you, there's something there. So gentlemen, throughout the business world, staff oh boy, see, I had to have one screw up for me a time. Staff shortages seem to be everywhere. I wrote this question too. And we're commenting here, both Ian and I, how you go into places. Alberta got hit really hard with the pandemic and then the oil prices, but things are getting back there. But gas stations are shutting at 10 o'clock at night because they can't get people to work. So once we, or if we decide to hire more staff, where the heck can we find good people? So Don, I'm going to hit you back with that because I can see Larry going, he's kicking me under the table instead of going, oh, pick me.
Yeah, but I didn't knock over your liquor bottle, so we're
Okay, there you go. Don?
I think you find them, lots of places to find them. People are very trainable from other industries. And I think that you need to provide a career path. It's not just a job. You have them in your own store. You have people in the service area. You have people that were lot people. I recently worked for a dealer group in the Chicago area where the VP started as a lot person 15 years ago. Now he runs 12 dealerships, and I'm going to say over 1,000 employees, and by a 15 or $20 million company. So don't look past those people that show some promise. And it's the ones that ask the questions. Keep a lookout for people that are asking you questions that you're working with, and encourage them to ask questions. That's where I would start.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I know myself, it's a different thing up here in Canada, but in my stores, I always tried to reach out and hire ex-military people because all you hear is their employment problems for veterans are low, and I'd love to have them, but never got a lot of luck with that. Maybe down in the States, you guys have a much better chance with people there. Here, I don't know what we do, but it's a challenge. And then, again, we came up with this idea for the show because people are saying to you, I don't need more people. Look at how much money I'm making. What's your opinion there, Larry?
My opinion is you got to look forward, not backward. I know we're in Canada, but I'm going to throw out a very old baseball analogy. There was a
We
great.
don't have baseball here.
That's okay. We'll straighten this whole out. If we can get Don over to Moose Jaw, we can hockey. Yeah, guys with sticks. We get it. The great Satchel Paige said, "Don't look back. Something may be catching up on you." My father said, "Nothing good or bad lasts forever. If it's great, man, you better enjoy it because it won't be here forever. And if it's terrible, that won't last either." So to naively say, "Oh, this is great. We're rocking now." I was a Cadillac salesman at a Cadillac dealer, and GM was cursed with the concept of ready, fire, aim. If we build it, they'll buy it. That doesn't work. At some point, this is going to turn around. And I mean, listen, you can't force a dealer to do anything he doesn't want to do, but I think not to be prepared, not to anticipate a turnaround, not to make sure you're fully staffed at all time is just a mistake. And as far as where do you find people, they're everywhere. You've got guys, you've got Don on here, you've got John Locke, you have intelligent recruiters on here. We know where to find people, and we know how to bring them to the table. So it's like everything else. You look in the right spot and you'll find what you need.
Oh, and by the way, John, I just want you to know that Larry has signed a non-compete clause, and he will not be entering the Halifax or the Maritimes until Costacos goes in and knocks on the doors of 100 dealerships. So it's quite the thing. So for now, if you need people and you're anywhere near the Maritimes, and any guy's going national or international, I guess he's got to compete with Larry. John Costacos is the man. So
oh, and John, I did bring up my mother.
Latka.
Yeah, that's my man. I did bring up my mother and father's marriage certificate, so you can stop calling me that little bastard from the United States that's training in Canada now.
One thing I do want to acknowledge, because Larry talked about through good and bad.
Larry.
By the way, Larry, I want to know how you're making out with counseling.
Counseling.
It's an interesting concept. They say, denial is a river and all that stuff. It's really funny, John, because I'm the last person on earth that would ever need counseling. And let me tell you why, my brother. Every day, I'm glad I'm breathing. Anything. I flew up from Philadelphia through Montreal, and the plane was delayed an hour. And this lady next to me, I thought her head was going to explode. She looked like the exorcist. This airline, this country, the world. I said, I'm actually happy. She said, how the hell could you be happy? I said, instead of having a 2-hour layover, we're going to have an hour layover. So the counseling goes, I know you're kidding, but goes to the same point of everything else we're talking about. Do we look forward? Do we look backward? Do we just pretend where we are? No, I'm fine. I can stop smoking, drinking, doing cocaine, whatever I want. It's a matter of jumping back to Socrates, and unexamined life is one not worth living, and looking in the mirror. And to dare ask me if I would need counseling when I'm sitting with Ian and Jeff, it's such a moot point. Maybe we get a group rate, John.
You do.
The triumvirate.
Spend about 9 hours with him in a car and see what he needs.
There we go. By the way, I only paid to go down to Tampa. Don was kind enough to pay for me to leave.
I thought that was the Business Improvement Association of Tampa. So as I was saying, Larry brought up about there's good, there's bad, nothing lasts forever. I do have to acknowledge that here in the province of BC, Toyota's
Alberta
dealership, well, sorry, in the province of British Columbia, we're in Alberta right now. Toyota dealership last week got torched. So
Really?
Arsonists came in, they sprayed the building with gasoline, and they lit it on fire, and there's barely any walls left. And their staff, everybody's scrambling to make things happen.
Yeah, they're in the trailer. They're in the,
They actually have a used car building that was designed to hold 4 people and some cars. Now everybody's working out of there. They're trying to find a shop from other dealers. So you know something, while it may not do anything to help them rebuild, I'm putting it in the chat here. It's Penticton Toyota. And if you get a chance, reach out and give them some support. They'll let them know that the automotive community's there with them.
absolutely.
They will come back too, definitely. Ian.
Yeah. Would you be better served to train, treat, and pay our current staff better in order to handle staffing shortfalls? Or have we done that already? And we can't do anything more with what we have. And the reason this question is interesting is we did a show called the rehire show, I believe it was, a restaffing show. And everyone was like, what's that about? We said, well,
after the pandemic.
yeah, we were like, okay, well, you laid off 80% of your staff, and now you're looking to staff up. So would you rehire those people that you laid off, or would you just choose other people? And people are like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, well, clearly you laid them off. Some of them you probably don't want back. So that's another part of this question. But go ahead. Let's start with Don on this one.
Well, I know someone who went through that, and you happen to be over 55 with a heart condition and happen to have a senior management position. And here you have a lawsuit looming, and he's in arbitration now. So let's be careful who you choose to eliminate from your organization.
And the funny part is, I'll make you a bet that this person was probably a good performing person, but they were worried that at any day, heaven forbid, something the worst would happen and they'd be stuck, so they might as well deal with it now. I don't know. I'm just giving
Nothing like that. Yes, people make the wrong mistakes in life continuously with employees that show promise. I've seen it, and I'm sure Larry's seen it, or anyone else that's been in a dealership for a length of time. You have to create a career path for these people, and you have to let them know when you're going to bring them back. I spoke about this a couple of years ago, and the pandemic is a bad thing. The dealerships blew people out, literally. Some people were put on furlough with a clear path to come back gradually as the pandemic allowed them to, especially in Northeast states of the United States and Canada, where it was more severe, and where they had a clear path and where there were reasonable precautions taken. I had a client where they did take everyone's temperature every day, check them out, and they also scanned the customer's temperature. And then what a great opportunity when they came in to get their driver's license information right into the CRM when they entered the building.
I do have to
thought of
interject,
that?
Don, if I could just say something. If you kept the good, solid, well-trained salespeople, they could take the customer's temperature without having a thermometer.
I was going to say, unless you're in New York where they took the temperature, but it was rectally, but that's a whole different situation.
Wow.
Hey, Bill, answering Ian's question
Wow, let's go there.
on what Don said, no, they're not trained right. I mean, forget a commercial for me or John Lotka or Don or anybody. They're not trained right. One of the questions that I ask in every class, I don't care if they've been doing it 30 years or they're rookies, I'm trying to get hired, is what do you say to the guy that says, I only have 10 minutes, I got to go watch my son play ball? The answer is not come back in 10 minutes or I can do it in 10 minutes. The answer is, what does your son play? What does your daughter play? There's easy ways to build rapport. And a lot of salespeople think the idea is to talk. The idea is to listen. This way, what comes out of your mouth has some kind of meaningful impact. The real key, I believe, anybody disagrees, I think they're crazy for change, but I'll be the one calling people crazy, is communication. By accident, I hired 5 guys in the last month who are out on the street getting me service and recruiting business. Every one of them is happy, and I'm happy with them. I don't have like a fancy office, where there's snacks, but we communicate. If they call me, I answer. I always thank them because I do appreciate them doing what they're doing. None of this is complicated. If they would have put their arm around the 55-year-old guy and said, listen, we really don't want to lay you off. We'll do this and this and this and this. Think about what makes customers insane. They try to reach us. It could be to buy another car. It could be a problem. It could be a service thing, and nobody answers the phone. So I think we're really dialed back to communication. If you communicate properly with your staff, here's why we're training you. Here's what we want you to learn. And here's the good things that will happen if we do it. Here's why we're laying you off. Here's why we'll bring you back. It's all about communicating. And I have to say, I love this industry. I love the people in it. I even love most of the people on this call. Okay. But if there's stop with the hand. Okay. Turning into Al Jolson on me, or there's a hand motions on the thing. But it still comes back to the same thing. This might be the worst industry in terms of communicating ever. You can leave a guy a message, I want to buy 7 cars, and he doesn't get back to you in 3 days. That's my feelings, gentlemen.
Can I just throw something in there?
Yeah.
So one of the things, Larry, thanks for bringing up the teaching properly. One of the things that I always teach is CPR. And I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about communications, processes, and relationships. Quick story about a dealer principal that called me in on a consulting gig. And one of my questions to him was, how are communications at your dealership? He thought about it for a few seconds and says, well, quite frankly, John, we don't talk about it much.
Classic.
Well, we go back to that analogy of Starbucks. And, I don't know where they get their people. As we said, they're all cheerful. They're all engaging. They don't get paid much, but they're happy. And yet we have people, just said, making 150, 200 grand a year because they're that good, but they got 7 people lined up to buy a car, but they don't get a response.
We're back to the dog and the finger and looking in the right direction. You go for a job at Starbucks. Everybody's happy. They actually encourage people to sit around all day. Man, in a restaurant, it's like, all right, they ate, they got dessert, they tipped me, get the heck out so I can get the next group of people in. Not at Starbucks. So they bring in people that like to socialize, aren't in a big hurry, like to smile. So they're bringing in our culture, it's scary because people perceive us as being negative. That's why it's so important to be friendly and outgoing. And by the way, John Locke, we grow more and more similar every time I speak to you, because when I give dealer my prices, I have to actually give them CPR, but they get over it.
I'd like to ask, if you'd like to say something, Harry or Christian, on the topic, considering you weren't preloaded with the question like Don and Larry were.
So it's funny because John and I talk quite often, and this is I guess a common thread of our conversation. And I'm, what we're finding, and I'm going to talk big picture here. I'm a small store, right? So I got 12, 13 employees. I hire one person. It's 8% increase in my workforce. It's not small potatoes, but I'm at the spot where I know I need to hire more people to grow and future proof and all that kind of stuff. And the, I guess, challenging part, just to bring it back a few minutes, what you said about, low inventory and all that kind of stuff. And, how do you bring someone in and show them an empty parking lot and say, hey, one day you're going to get to sell 20 cars. It's a challenge, right? Just philosophically, it's a challenge. But what we've come to realize, and, we're part of a small group, is that, in a roundabout way, or we've got to figure out a way to, anytime we get a quality candidate for anything, we've got to hire them and just figure out a way to make it work. And, almost, if you build it, they will come situation, and start at that level and not let a quality candidate go away because we're scared about how we're going to pay them, or we're scared about X, Y, or Z. Now, along with that, because like all stores, and I'm not unique to this, is that we don't have the history of a great culture of recruiting, training, etc. So we're kind of building this, kind of step by step. And, my concern, but I'm glad I'm concerned about it, is, let's say I do find 2 great people and I hire them tomorrow. What am I going to do with them for 6 months, right? Like, I have to have a plan to make sure that they don't go somewhere else or get bored or not see a future within the dealership here. So, there's a lot of moving pieces to that. And thankfully, the group I'm working with, we're paying attention to that stuff, and looking forward, to use the analogy before, so that, we are prepared for whatever the future brings as best we can be. And it's not going to be without a lot of heavy lifting, because again, it's not been our historical habits to do all these things right.
Christian, can I ask a question?
Sure.
What moves are you making? Have you made? Or are you planning on making to try to acquire more inventory? I'm only asking because you're 100% right. If you don't put the piece in the puzzle, then
yeah. So first and foremost, we are in the moment. We have, I got about 40 new cars and I got about 50 used cars. So in my little town, I'm a lot healthier than most. And that's not been without a lot of work and effort, and, excuse the French, a little bit of shithouse luck involved in there too, with some things that we did last year that has put us in this spot. So this little store in our little town, beginning of April 21, I had $7 million in new cars, right? Like, and that was, we planned that, but we planned it without knowing what was going to happen with production cuts and that kind of stuff. We just didn't know. But because of that, it put me in a pretty good spot. So fast forward to where we are now, and we are in the moment. The first and foremost thing I can tell you we're doing is we're really paying attention to what deals we're doing. And I'm not interested in doing a cash deal to someone who's 400 kilometers away. If they got an interesting trade, I'll look at it. But in a perfect world, I've got someone local who has a trade who's going to finance, right? That's my kind of perfect customer. Yeah.
I have to say an interesting thing. So if you watch the auctions right now, today, the online auctions, I know TradeRev just in Western Canada must have 30 2022 vehicles with less than 1,000 kilometers on it. So there's some dealers somewhere selling people Grand Wagoneers, or what was it? I saw it not today. F-150 Honda Civics. They're selling to people for no profit, and somebody's buying it and flipping it right away. So there's something wrong there too.
Yeah. So so that's a very good point. So I know right now, like the auctions in Halifax here tomorrow, I know right now I could empty my lot tomorrow and make oodles of money. Like, I could sell every new car for more than MSRP, and I could sell every used car for more than I could even, want to think about, quite frankly.
But you'd cut your employees out of the mix. Your advantage, Christian, and I haven't met you, but it's a pleasure to speak to you, is you have a small store, and I got a feeling every one of your employees. Your line of communication is wide open. It's a hell of an advantage, because I take their money and I swear I really want to help, but I run into some organizations and I just think they're so incredibly screwed up and so impenetrable. Mm-hmm. You get frustrated even trying to make a suggestion. But you're already a futurist. You already put yourself in a position to think ahead rather than run scared or be busy. I'm just got a feeling that if you brought anybody in, you'd probably push them in the direction. Do you do bird dog referrals there? Like if somebody sends a customer in to buy a car, do you give them 100 or 200 or something?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're doing the same thing with your employees if they can find a car to buy, correct? It's 2 or 250 or something if they can point you in a direction.
Yeah, so I guess that was my next tier of thought here is where we're trying to managing it from our current inventory. But yes, we've got to proactively find used car inventory. And I won't say we haven't taken that seriously yet, but it is like top radar right now because again, we're in a unique position locally because we have some inventory. And I know that's not going to last. If I had a month like I had, this month like I had last month, they'll be pretty skinny around here. So, we're very, very laser focused on, what the next several months are going to bring. And quite frankly, based on what Nissan Canada is telling me, we're going to have to be really, really focused on the used car part of our business. And it's going to take some intensive efforts on our behalf. And I don't know who said it at the beginning. I don't know if it was Ian or whatever, but I wrote a note like, maybe part of new car sale or new salespeople that we hire, that part of their initial training is finding used cars, right? Like literally just get on Kijiji, get on Facebook Marketplace, get on Trader, get on wherever, and we orient them to that behavior out of the gate as
Christian,
opposed to waiting.
You're 100% right. I've always trained people way before the crisis because if you're talking to people about their trades, you're talking about the next deal. I mean, it just evolved into something completely different. It looks like you've got a friendship with my buddy John Lodka, so I'm not going around them, but for free, if you ever want some advice or some thoughts. No. I would never work against John, but I'm a little crazier than John. John thinks outside of the box. I step on the box on the way to get my other toys. So feel free to reach out. Other than my tenuous grip on reality and sanity, I make some sense.
And
Appreciate it.
Thoughts there, Christian. If you're not familiar with that show, but reach out to the team at Beaver Toyota Cumming. They're in the U.S. They moved from selling 100 used cars a month 24 months ago to selling over 400 used cars from an inventory of over 700 used cars at this time. And the thing that was very interesting, in addition to giving Mr. Long a heart attack when he said you need 45 days of stock in used cars.
Yeah.
He was like, freaking out about. He said, well, he hired a 19-year-old kid. The whole job of that gentleman is basically to buy cars from private sellers, whether it be online or Cars and Cars or whatever it is. And he said, listen, he doesn't price the cars retail. All his job is to buy cars at scale. That's all he does. And I think he has more than that one employee doing that. But the thing that's interesting about that episode was he talks about how to get from 100 used cars a month or whatever that starting point is to 400. And it's very interesting. He has what's called a buy-in center or something like that. But it was very, very interesting how he did that.
And he also designated what the guy, again, in your case, Christian, I know you do it just from talking to you and listening to you. But you go into most places, nobody ever sits down and says, what is your role? You define it and let me tell you what I think it is. So everybody thinks that somebody, it's the old thing, 5 guys in a circle, who's going to handle it? Everybody points to the right.
Harry, do you want some thoughts? Do you want to have Harry have some thoughts on this?
Oh, by all means, but Harry, if you want to say anything, please. Just before that, Christian, I have to share something with you too. A very large used car dealer in Vancouver, who does, for our numbers, it's big numbers. He does about 200 used cars a month. All he is used cars. Used to be affiliated with a budget franchise, so he got first dibs. Well, now they're not. They have no cars to give up. I actually rented a car the other day. I got a 2019 Corolla with about 55,000 miles on it. I have never driven a Corolla in my life that rattled like that. I took it back to the rental agent and bought them. But one thing they told me, they're very successful and they're on a high traffic street. They have a sign in front. So I can't remember the wording, but something to the effect of, sell us your car, we don't care what it is. And he says he's doing 2 to 3 a week, private buys from people driving by. So, Harry, do you have, please share your opinions.
It's very interesting that we go to dealer. We were in Florida a couple months ago, and we had a large class there, and the GM made a comment to us. You have no inventory. We asked, why do you need more sales staff? Because his current employees were getting fat, dumb, and happy. They were making way too much money. It's never going to stay that way. We all know it's going to crash sooner or later, whether it's 04, 05, we don't know that fact. But they're too used to saying, Mr. Jones, I have this car. Do you want it now? No, get out of here. And he wanted to bring in fresh people that had a different attitude of how they have to sell and learn how to sell properly. We went to a used car dealership this past week. The most dysfunctional group I ever saw in my life. Larry, right?
Yes, and keep in mind when I start talking about dysfunction, that's like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar talking about tall, skinny black people. I know of dysfunction.
It was frightening. We invited some of the current salespeople into the training class, and to hear employees make comments about ownership and management at the dealership like that. It's frightening that owners don't have a clue what's going on in their businesses. I see it all the time, and it's just absolutely unbelievable. We've got a lot of young people looking to come into the car industry. We interviewed 2 of them last week that got hired. They were unbelievable. They hadn't been in the industry ever. They're both personable. They knew how to look at somebody. They came in dressed and ready.
It was 3, Harry. It was the 2 bodybuilders and the kid that used to work at Honda.
Well, I left the Honda guy out because he had experience. But some of the people we see coming in, we've gone to parts of the country, somebody comes in with 6 different colors of hair for an interview. They come in with ripped jeans. They come in with sneakers. It's frightening.
Christian, you can obviously tell Harry's over 30.
Our society is falling apart on salespeople. People don't realize what the auto industry could do to you. I mean, I was in the industry for 40 years. I owned part of the company. I built a $50 million lease portfolio. And I did it all. I washed cars. Today's society won't get out if a car's dirty, go wash it. It's a salesperson. That's someone else's job. And it's frightening what's going on right now. It's really frightening, especially in the bigger cities and the inner cities. It's even tougher.
Well, you know.
Yes, I am old.
Well, you mentioned a comment because Ian used to be a very top Honda salesperson. He was like the top of the class. Of course, in those days, it was Honda say, you want a Civic? They go, yeah, I can put you down for December. And they'd say, no, I want one sooner. Well, I can get you a yellow one in 3 months. Well, when can I get a black one? I can get you a black one in 9 months. All right, I'll take the yellow one. Just kidding.
By the way, a couple of weeks ago on the show, they asked me for a book recommendation, and I said the best book I've ever read in the car business was The Reckoning. It was David Halberstam, the Pulitzer Prize winner. The story of Nissan and Ford, who were at that point, were always number 2 to Toyota and to GM. And amazingly enough, and it's documented, Honda was offered to Ford. Ford could have bought Honda, the entire company, and turned it down. So we talk about non-forward thinking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. But the other thing that really comes to mind when you look at order banks, and I had discussions with 2 Honda dealers this week about order banks. They said, well, why would we want to hire someone? Because we got 95% of the cars we're hoping to get sold. But where they're missing isn't the order bank. There's nothing wrong with the order bank. What they're not looking at is how am I managing those customers that are in my order bank?
That's exactly right.
Because that customer is less brand loyal than they've ever been, and to the point where they're putting deposits on 3 different makes and models of vehicles and saying, okay, who's going to show up first? That's the one I'm going to buy. So you need to be touching that customer as a sales team and as a dealership at least every 30 days, if not more often, for a couple of reasons. A, you might have a different car that came in that Honda or whatever the brand provided for you. And B, you might be able to move that customer forward. But C, you're going to manage that drop off. And there's going to be some drop off. I think when I talk to you, I was like, yeah, well, I'm not worried about that. At 95% sold. I may not even get that many. What are you doing to move that forward faster, whether it be a used car or a new car, and really start managing that customer, and more importantly, the trade-in, if there's a trade available, because that helps you with inventory. So the salesperson needs to know how to do that.
You're 100% right. What gets lost in translation here is, okay, we got full list, we got their money, next. Don't work that way. This business is about the next deal. It's about repeat and referral. Man, Christian, if you're the GM or the owner, I don't have to tell you what happens when a guy stops going to your shop for tires. The next thing you know, all the service is going, and then the next deal is going. So we still need people to capture these people, make them happy, make them want to come back, explain to them about service. I mean, we're seeing with Carvana that it's not as easy as pointing and saying, look at the fancy car, don't worry about your title, boom, boom, boom. So I think you're 100% right.
I was at a conference, bring up the point, I was at a David King conference a couple of weeks ago, and a dealer in Texas came up with the idea that he was selling people a used car till their new car came in. He would give them a car that would last them, or they could keep, and he guaranteed the value of that car in writing for when their new car came in. And then his salespeople stayed in contact with them. So he was selling them not one, but two cars out of the transaction.
And getting their other car in early.
And he was able to keep that other car coming into his shop for service. That was the key.
And you see, I have to say, Don, if it's such a smart thing, and we heard that from Bill Camastro months and months ago, caddy dealer, Gold Coast near New York, big store, he's winning awards like crazy. And he's pulling people out of their caddy leases, you know, not early, but near the end, putting them into a used Range Rover or something like that, and setting them up on their new Cadillac in whenever it shows up, same program. And it's funny, you know, some of these dealers that are complaining that say, well, you know what, I don't have any cars, I got waiting lists. They should be on the auction, seeing that 2022 whatever with 300 Ks, pay too much money for the car, call their customer beforehand because they got a chance to preview it. They can send them a preview and get them into that car now. And you know what? So they don't get the 3.99 lease or finance.
Why would we accept at any time in our life a structure and say there's nothing we can do about it? I'm not bragging. I was a successful Cadillac salesman. I made the advisory council. I was one of the top 4 guys, number 2 in the country, which was tricky out of Trenton because our store was the worst building you ever saw in your life. It was it had stand-up radiators. Like our idea when the new caddies would come out is we put little tuxedos on the roaches, so it looked a little sharper in there. Guess what? I got rich. I sold a zillion cars, and the idiots next to me would stare out the window all day. It's the same scenario. There's still cars out there to buy. There's still ways to keep people happy. There's still ways. So I think more than ever, you need salespeople. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm pushing recruiting. I'm just as happy training people. But the communication, the reaching out, that's the key to everything we're talking about. And you ever talk about, because if you're not communicating with your salespeople, how can they ever communicate? Can I tell a quick crazy story? These guys already know I'm out of my mind. I got hired in South Carolina, sight unseen. The guy heard my reputation. He heard I was crazy, but I was very effective, and he hired me, and he brought me down to South Carolina, where I realized quickly I was the only Jewish guy for 200 miles. Christian, even the dogs had crosses on. And since I'm out of my mind and I already had the guy's money, I figured I'd have some fun. And I opened up by saying, Jesus Christ would have been the greatest used car manager of all time. The guy started to have a stroke. You could see like his left. I held up my hands. No, don't have a stroke. Jesus Christ invented servant management. He washed the feet of the disciples. Imagine if managers nurtured their salespeople, then they'd nurture. Christian, I don't know how old you are. Me and Harry are old dogs. We used to go into meetings. I bet you Lockett did too. They called us every foul name. A Navy guy would blush with the foulness and the horrible. And then when you were beaten to a protoplasm, they'd say, okay, go out and sell some cars.
You know, I have to comment. I can only imagine what happens. John, Larry, a few other people that do that. You do what you do. You train people and they're just excited. They're ready to go. And they go to their new dealership and they're hired, or you recruit them for that dealership, and you can't be there all the time. And then somebody says, there's the list, go sell some cars. You know how to do it now.
Yeah. Most people don't, but unfortunately, what we need to do is get dictionaries and send them to every dealership. Forget online. Make them actually look. The definition of a manager is someone who manages. Not someone, I did a train
Not
the
a damager.
I did a train the trainer manual. I was working in New York and the guy said, I love what you do with my salespeople, fix my damn managers. And the first page of it shows 3 managers on suits getting into a car with a flat tire. Now, 3 managers would never say, we got a conference at 80 miles, we'll take that car with the flat tire. They'd fix it, change it, or get another car. But all day long, they complain about their salespeople. Fix them, put your arm around them, hold them accountable, or get rid of them.
I actually have an idea, John, Larry. Now, we're known here for connecting people at the AutoHub show. And we help, the reason that Larry's here in Edmonton, which never heard the name before, was because we connected him with a gentleman up here, John Kostakos, who represents trainers, etc. But an idea is maybe you should train the dealers, the principals, the top levels, the presidents. And then once you finish with them, work your way down. Because frankly, it's like you just say, you got to nurture people, you got to put your arms around them, and you're going and hiring people. And we know our hiring processes as a rule suck. But could you imagine that? Now, by the way, John, Larry, you can get a lot of money out of a dealer principal. That store just made $22 million this year. So, that's 10% to Ian and I, okay?
Well, the other thing,
John, we just formed a partnership and got robbed by 2 Canadian guys. I just got over the border. I don't even have, they're still checking my documents.
My God, I'm in Halifax and I get mugged in Edmonton.
Christian, if they fire me, okay, first I'll sue them because obviously it was a pre-existing condition, my mental illness. Then I could be your next employee. You don't have to worry about motivating me. I am a little shy. Maybe you could help me with that.
So Jeff, it says this to time. A few minutes left in the show, but the other thing that came up again when I was here yesterday, and Jeff and I both had very interesting car rental experiences in the Edmonton market. If you're a dealer in any market, and some in the US are already doing this, is they're renting cars to local people. And what they're finding in some cases is that that customer ends up wanting to own the car. But also, if you're looking to sell some older used cars, rental car companies have no cars. So if you even have older cars, I mean, they're buyers. I mean, they're looking for anything they can find. So
just make sure the insurance is in line, because the rental insurance is a whole lot different than the loaner
100%.
thing. And I think you do have some guys out like Christian, who's a real guy and doesn't want to blow out his whole inventory. He'd make money, but he'd kill his people.
Oh, I understand. I mean, there was a dealer, I think, on that show that I listened to, and what they were doing was they were renting cars short term in their market, which I think was Greater Los Angeles. And then some of those people ended up just buying the car. So they ended up selling cars that way. But also, if you're buying cars at scale, you may find that some of the dealers knocking on your door, or the people knocking on your door to buy them, are car rental companies, not customers. So that's just another thought.
But
Go
you
ahead,
see,
Jeff.
Christian isn't going to sell the car rental companies because they're paying cash.
Yeah.
Mind you, hey, you can get a buyback agreement. You can sell it to them for 3 months in the summer, get them back in the winter, SUVs. Not a bad idea.
Yeah, well, I'm a recovered rental car person, so I work for Enterprise for almost 12 years. So I know the guys pretty good in my market because we work pretty close together here. And it's funny to say, because they've been looking to buy new, used, whatever off me at any time. Is there anything you got? Anything you got? And then one of my current employees also used to be with Enterprise, and he was talking with someone last week, and he said the 2 guys I used to work with, he said they're literally out on the roads. If they see a car for sale in the driveway, they're knocking on the door because they are desperate.
Yeah, and that's it's something, I mean, John, you know that, Harry, we've been around a little bit a while. John's fairly new to the business. Larry's 3 or 4 years. But we've always talked about this to salespeople. Hey, get on the phone, call somebody, see what's going on. Why are they selling the car? Maybe you're going to trade it. Now it's just call them and get the car.
But you're back to, instead of hollering at somebody, get on the phone, sit with them and explain to them why it makes more sense. Listen, I'm a crazy guy. So it's not like I'm giving somebody a lecture as a Boy Scout. I just always tell people, if you're going to be somewhere for 8 hours or 7 hours or 10, don't you want to be busy? Doesn't everybody want to look at their watch and go, wow, it's time to go home, the day flew by, rather than every 5 minutes you're checking your watch or your iPhone or computer and you can't believe how slow things are going. Once again, it's making people understand, here's why we want you to do it. Here's why it'll benefit you, and let me help you do it.
Well, wait a minute. Well, no. I'm sorry, John. I know that you and Larry on your curriculum. Step 1, come to work. Step 2, get a coffee. Step 3, open the paper. Step 4, look out the window and see there's no ups.
How old is he? Did he mention the paper? Because I bring a newspaper into 17-year-olds and they think like I'm an alien from another planet. What are you going to do with that? Actually, I'm going to roll it up and hit you in the head. I don't think I'm going back to that.
Please excuse me. Go back to your phone where you were sitting about 10 minutes ago on social media.
Yeah, there we go.
Teach him how to rotary dial a phone.
Yeah.
How to use the light switch.
One of my
down
favorite
windows
one
in
of
a
my
car.
favorite stories about the newspaper is a dealer that I was working with over an extended period of time had a financial services manager that was really upset one morning because he had people actually lined up waiting to see him. He was upset. He didn't have time to have his coffee or read his paper.
You know, it's going to be interesting because a question that I had here is, what are we going to do when things do change? What are we going to do with everybody, salespeople? And again, mentioning Bill Camastro, because he talked about this, you know, a year and a half ago. He's scared when he's got his salespeople making $250,000 and $350,000 a year, standing around, lining them up like ducks. What are they going to do when it changes? And so when you as we say, we're talking about getting more staff, is a time like, yeah, maybe it might be time to get people and water down those massive earnings now before later on they don't know what to do and they got to learn how to do it, right, Larry?
I don't even look at it that way. I'm a capitalist. If you can make money, make it. I encourage people to, to put things aside, not be foolish with their money. But I just know we have survived. In 2008, you had the economy meltdown. We had in the United States, we had Barack Obama. He came out with the idea of cash for clunkers. Man, did we, that was better than the guy coming in with his tax check. But we'll survive everything. We survived when gas went crazy and all of a sudden American cars were considered junk.
When gas went crazy? Where have you been the last
brother?
month?
Back. How about when they were rationing it and you couldn't get it?
That's true.
Look, here's how old I am. I remember if you said to somebody it's built like a Japanese car, it was an insult. They were good for transistor radios. You could, if you had a cool teacher, she'd let you hear the World Series. John, I'll explain this baseball stuff to you later. I know you're a little confused. And Don will help you with it when you visit at Moose Jaw after his recent purchase. But the bottom line is, look how the market turned around. Look how the world turned around. All I'm saying is we're alive and one day we'll be dead. And in between, we need to be productive. We need to have fun. We need to make friends. We need to make money. And the way to do that is not to stare at shit and go, yeah, it's happening. Let's make it happen. Let's anticipate it happening. We might be wrong, but nothing's worse than staring at things and being an innocent bystander.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said.
One of the things that we've had a number of proactive dealers on the show and also just dealers in general that are looking to learn. And we did have a metaverse show, which was quite interesting, even though we didn't know anything about the metaverse. But, realistically, you're either looking for a way to be successful or a way to fail, or you're accepting failure. And I think in a lot of cases, we're looking at life this way. We're watching too much bad news, and we're really not looking at it from a point of view of what customers think. And this was another conversation I had this week. I said, well, if I'm driving by 5 dealerships as a customer, not as a dealer, not as someone in the industry, what do I think when there's nothing on the lot? Do I think that dealership is even open? I have dealerships that have 5 cars on their entire lot. What is that?
But years and years and years ago, I still saw dealers. The front line was dirty.
Yeah.
They have 5 black cars. They didn't break it up with a red or white one. So it's not like they asked Einstein, what's the difference between genius and stupidity? And he says, genius has its limits. Yeah. We've been behaving stupidly forever. The crazy stuff we've done.
We are rewarded for doing things we shouldn't do. And we talk, again, because the top of the show is staffing. We're rewarded for hiring somebody, putting them on the floor, putting them at the service counter, whatever it may be, and them catching a time when things are hot. And so we get rewarded. If not, we get rid of them and find somebody else. And it definitely will survive this, but we do believe you have to be prepared because it's coming. There's an article today in Automotive News that there's manufacturers that are getting around this shortage. And the funny part is they're all like the Kia and Hyundai, they're producing these new electric vehicles like crazy. Where are they getting chips? Something's not totally.
Well, but also what we're finding, and you're right 100%, when you look at Chrysler, for example, we had, was it High Valley Chrysler?
High River
Chrysler on. Chrysler had the availability for this dealer to buy a bunch of basic pickup trucks. And a lot of them just like, oh, we don't want those. We want the high dollar ones. And he goes, well, how many you got? I'll buy them. I'll have something to sell.
That was the forward thinking dealer.
Yeah, well, no, but see, even we very rarely do you say brilliance in terms of the people at Chrysler and whatever they're called now, because sometimes they're just a little archaic, but they're building last body style Rams like they're going out of style. Every Chrysler dealer here in Alberta has a full lot. And which means they have a full sales staff, which means they're hiring more salespeople. I keep trying to get us back to the staffing thing, but that's okay. But they're selling trucks that first came out in 2010. And they've got them there. And you know, I know what they're doing. They're selling them, say, listen, you can't get a Laramie with the auto controls and the visual dynamics and everything else. Take this one. It's still a cool truck. Give me your old truck. And we'll get you back in, because they know they're going to be back in. They've got low interest financing and they have rebates, which is a dirty word these days.
By the way, and to Jeff's point, we do apologize if we did drift off topic. As you can see, Ian has serious ADD. At least I think you do. I stopped listening once, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see trucks and other cars with less features just to build something. That's what you're going to see. But go ahead.
You're already seeing it, because there some very serious expensive vehicles are being delivered with things, the little niceties like the rear window lock isn't there.
Okay, all right, that's it. I'm going to go here. We're going to go with the conspiracy theory. Okay, the chips are all over a huge country on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, because I will not say that because I don't want to maintain some bad wording. At the same time, has something else that people are saying is a whole conspiracy theory. So maybe what's going on here is the chip people and the scientists are together and they're making this all up. What do you think?
I think your next theory is going to be that Kennedy committed suicide. Just as probable.
He's actually sitting in some island in the Caribbean now. He's about 95.
Probably having a Mai Tai with Elvis.
Yeah, that's right.
Bro, we know Elvis has definitely left the building.
No, it's Putin and the guy from North Korea, Kim Jong-un. They have all
That's
the
right.
chips.
So off politics, and we are talking about employees. So would it be okay if I threw in a shameless plug?
Absolutely.
No, I it's so nice of you to do that for me,
It's a
John.
Larry Feldman show. I don't know about that.
Go ahead, John. Have
Well,
at it, my friend.
that's why I asked for permission, you see?
Have at it, my friend.
So the podcast that I produced for this month, which aired yesterday morning and is available on all major platforms, Power Past the Competition this month is about employee development.
Good.
And John is a gentleman. I will vouch for him.
And would you tell us the title?
Yeah.
The
By the way,
title,
John has
The title of the
phone,
show,
so it's
what's the
worthwhile.
title of that particular show?
it's called Employee Development.
Okay.
John, I love you. I'm going to help you with your titles. You need something with a little bit more pizzazz. We'll throw a little touch of Larry Feldman
Now,
insanity.
wait a minute. Hang on. The name of the podcast is Power Past the Competition.
But you didn't say that. You just said it was employee development.
This particular episode is about employee development.
Okay.
And by the way,
now we
you
know
guys,
how to find it.
okay,
You know, you get lost in the translation when you have Larry on top of you like that.
well, that's all right. Listen, Larry and I are in negotiations right now with MGM. We're going to be making a movie, and then we're going to take the show on the road. We'll probably be appearing in Vegas, and not in one of the back rooms either.
With Elvis.
I like it.
Folks, all good things must come to an end, and this has been a really fun show. We have enjoyed immensely having Larry live. I like that. Larry here live.
Been a
with us.
pleasure.
And you know, we came here specifically because he was coming here, and we wanted to do something fun. I thank you, everybody who has joined us. Thank you, everybody who's listened to us on the major platforms of podcasts, and you listen to us before you listen to Power Past the Competition. But today, for some reason, I'd be go pop, 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 pop. And thank you, Ian. I'll leave it to you. And
Thanks very much, everybody. And have yourself a great week. Thanks for the input. And we're out.